I needed success, not in the sense of I wanted to apply myself and produce good results with my energy. Instead, it was like I had this hole I was trying to fill with outward achievement. And if I could only just achieve enough, then they'd trust me, then they'd love me, then they'd accept me, then I'd be worth something. And that mentality is where the problems start. And especially as a young man, if that's the only thing driving you, it may work for a while. It certainly did for me, right? It looked on the outside like I had everything together. You know, there's nothing that can stop me, but internally, this narrative is playing of, if they only knew the real me, if they found out, it'd all come crashing down.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're gonna do a great job.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we are on a mission to connect men in pursuit of their potential. Before we jump into the episode, I encourage you to join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, to the fellas watching, I first encourage you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to get a new episode each and every single week, and share this with someone else so you can echo this value forward. And even further, most importantly, men, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Men's Group, where you can find the accountability, the mentorship, and the support you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a group of like-minded men on a mission to increase their capacity for life and put wind in each other's sails. I'm excited because we are getting some wind in our sails today from former U.S. Army captain, combat veteran, and leadership mentor who now trains men in authentic masculinity, emotional intelligence, and family leadership. A graduate of the University of Oregon, he served as a field artillery officer in the 101st Airborne Division and deployed to Afghanistan. After transitioning into corporate America, he continued to serve in the Tennessee National Guard and launched Elite Sentinel Coaching, where he helps men step into leadership as husbands, fathers, and professionals, a mission so much needed in this world. It is a pleasure to have George Hayworth on the podcast today. George, how's it going, brother?
Good, man. Really excited to be here. Appreciate the warm intro there. And yeah, let's get to it, man. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, have a lot to talk about. First and foremost, thank you for your service. Happy 4th of July, brother.
Happy 4th of July. You know, you said field artillery officer. This holiday used to be a lot cooler prior to being in the field artillery, because now fireworks are forever ruined to me. Once you shoot the big guns, fireworks just don't cut anymore. But in all seriousness, happy 4th of July to everyone. Really excited to be here and privileged to be, speaking on this momentous holiday. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's great to have you. Thank you for your service. And it is almost appropriate that this lined up, that we're having this conversation and we're able to share it with the world on this 4th of July. Now, I always start the episode with allowing the guests to introduce themselves in their own way. And before I had guests that I would have to introduce, but you being someone who really needs no introduction, and I'm sure some of our audience, our loyal listeners, you are probably and likely familiar with some of the work that you do already. So I've changed the question a little bit, and I like to pose it in this frame. You walk into a room where nobody knows you or what you do. How do you introduce yourself?
Who am I talking to? Kind of depends on the audience. We'll talk about this. You gotta know your audience. So for your audience today, I'll just simply say that, look, I'm a regular guy who got things wrong a lot in my life, and I have made it my mission to kind of take my experiences and all of my failures and to pay that forward and try and help men get to faster results significantly quicker than I did, and to have the life they've always dreamed about having, and leading in the way that men are called to do. So I'm just a guy like you listening. I'm nothing special. I just have devoted myself to this and kind of learned the hard way so you can learn the easy way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I want to start there. Something you said is making the mistakes early in life, right? A lot of us do that. And you even mentioned it too, learning the mistakes the hard way that you've gone through so someone else can learn it the easy way. For a lot of us, especially as men, myself included, we're hard-headed, bro. Like, my dad told me a lot of things growing up, but I almost had to learn for myself until the ripe age of 24, 25, when I finally wised up and I said, these things keep happening to me, and people warn me ahead of time. Maybe I should start listening.
Yeah.
For anybody who might be on the younger fringe of our audience and they haven't broken that habit yet and they want to figure it out for themselves, I'd love for you to speak a little bit on the experiential lessons, right? The things that we go through hard, but also the wisdom and the wise move of maybe just learning for somebody else. Speak on those lessons, hard and easily learned.
So for me, the mistakes really were born from a lack of understanding of what a real man should be. I chased outward success. I chased career, right? The military became my identity. This is something I think a lot of, especially younger men, right? You're seeking to kind of make your mark in the world, and you're trying to do something bigger than yourself and kind of prove yourself and earn your keep. Those are all good and valuable motivations. But many men, I think, fall into this trap of they pursue that at the cost of everything else. And so for me, really, I was a guy trying to fool the world to look like I played the part right. And then if I could just fool everyone, then it would be true. And in reality, there were some core fundamental things I was missing about myself and for myself, regardless of what I did professionally, or whatever achievements I did or didn't make. So that would be I think the first thing out there is understanding what a real man should be, what a good man is, I think is a lost art. It is sad that our culture is in this state right now, but I was so driven by the need to fit in and the need for approval that it caused me to engage in a lot of self-destructive behaviors. So to all the young men especially, take stock of where you really are. Why are you doing the things you're doing? And if you have to do this for yourself, no one else can point this out for you or make you do this. You have to identify, like, why am I really pursuing the things I'm doing? Is it because I actually believe in this? Is it actually aligned with the vision I have for my life? Or is it because I'm trying to, hit some level of achievement and then I'll be? That is a very dangerous trap. And if you catch yourself in that, now it's time to start listening to some advice and wisdom and start to ask men who have kind of walked the path before you for their wisdom and counsel. But you have to identify that internally first. So hopefully that answers the question. But that's something I see pretty common in our modern age. Most of us just weren't raised properly to understand that we need to be a man on a mission for ourselves and align with what we want to put on this earth, not because someone else said so.
What age, and I'll tell you my answer to start. 25 is I guess I give the grace period at 25. What age do you think someone, and specifically in the context of what we're talking about, what age do you think a man should take ownership of their lives, where no longer can you blame the conditioning, the upbringing? Now it's time to take ownership over what you've learned, what you unlearned. You look at the world, you start to see a dissonance between your conditioning, the aim that you had, the man that you aimed for. And for a lot of us, I just want to make this disclaimer. For a lot of us, we aimed at the kind of man that we wanted to be, and we hit. So the problem isn't the fact that we hit it. The problem is where we aimed, right? But there comes a time where, as a man, you need to look around, identify what I'm doing isn't working, or, right? Like, as you mentioned, take ownership of, okay, what do I actually want? Have that purpose, that mission, that vision to drive for, and then work towards that. Now, I understand there's a gap between when you make that decision and when the real world through fruition of it comes into play. But what age would you say it's time for you to start looking around, bro, and take responsibility for where your life is?
So I think it should be done in boyhood. I think this is the actual journey of becoming a real man. I argue that I don't really think I actually became an authentic man until I was almost 30 years old, because I was still living this boyish programming, like you alluded to, right? Oh, I did achieve what I wanted to do. I did hit this mark, and my life was still empty, right? There's nothing out there that's going to save you. There's no level of achievement or thing you're going to get, or some huge, gesture that's going to solve the problems of your life. Only you can. And so this has to start where we've lost this as a culture, right? Did you have a rite of passage, Ted? Did you have like any clear experiences that you are now one of the tribe? You've gone from the boy into a man, and you're a young man. You still got to prove yourself, but now we're going to kind of treat you a little bit differently, right? Did that happen for you? It certainly didn't happen for me. I asked this question a lot in keynotes, and what is it? Is it your first beer? Is it the first time you had sex? Like, what makes a man, right? I went to war. I thought that made me a man. Not at all. That absolutely does not make you a man. It's a manly thing potentially, but it doesn't make you a man. So I think we got to draw this way back. And this comes into wherever you are today. You need to take ownership right now listening to this episode, especially if you have sons, to start thinking big picture here and instilling these things, obviously at age appropriate maturity level types of discussion, but being intentional about these ideas while they're still boys, 11, 12 years old, to start thinking this way. And then you show it as their father by living it. Maybe you're an uncle, maybe you're a cousin, something like that. Modeling it for them is going to set them up for success, so they don't have to have this crisis of identity in their 20s or in their 30s or, God forbid, 40s or 50s. But I think it's an idea and an understanding that life's going to have a lot of twists and turns, but understanding the legacy I want to leave, the end point of my life, even if I'm only 15, thinking ahead in terms of 30, 40 years, what are the things I really want to accomplish and why? What is the motivation behind them? That should be instilled from boyhood. And I argue age is almost irrelevant. It's more of a maturity level thing here, where when you truly understand who you are, why you're doing it, what your real mission is, your purpose, you could be 22 and far more motivated and fulfilled in every step of the journey than a guy who's got millions and millions of dollars at 60 and has had 3 divorces and wonders what happened to his life. So I don't necessarily think age is relevant here. In fact, most of my clients are older than me. And that shocked me when I started out in this, because I assumed I'd be helping younger men, kind of looking at me like, oh, he may have some better ideas for me. And in fact, it's actually guys who are later along who have maybe squandered a lot of that time and made a lot of mistakes. And they're like, crap, I don't have time left. I need to get this right fast. So yeah, I say we need to raise boys better so that they actually can be young men with a clear head to resist the distractions of the modern age and actually focus on building a real legacy, one that actually matters.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Thayton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. Yeah, no, amen, brother, because it's easier to raise good men than raise good boys than fix broken men. And I say the 25 age as, to me, that's the limit of where you can't blame anyone else, right? The 18-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 15-year-old, I'll give some grace to a lack of a model. You might lack that perfect model, right? But if you get to 25, man, like, come on, bro. Like, you need to start putting two together. You mentioned until almost 30. My journey very similar, where I grew up with my father in my life and had great guidance from him, but there was also the societal pursuits that led me astray. I'm curious to pull back the curtains, because I wholeheartedly agree. I do think the man you become starts as a boy, in who you model yourself after, who are the influences that you have in your life and who are pouring into you, who are you listening to, who are you giving the permission to have that type of impact on your life. Because I don't think anyone who is listening to this podcast could just walk into any school, any jail, or any juvenile department and start giving mentorship. You need to have that grace given to you in order to do so, or to even have impact on that child. But it typically starts with what's in the home, right? What are the examples our parents are setting for us? I'm curious as to how your upbringing and then your introduction into the military helped at least lay a foundation for what became something to build off of. Because sometimes we find ourselves with worn out tools. We want to build ourselves into the man. And if we're being discerning, we can find some useful things with where we are. We could find the fact, again, I say we hit that aim. Okay, I've been engaged, I've been driven, I have work ethic. And this is me saying my list, right? I'm the kind of person, I set a target, I go for it, I'm relentless, which some would say is a bad thing, but when focused in the right direction is a great thing. So maybe it's not so much my drive that's the problem, or something that's quote unquote with me that's the problem. It's where I focused it and executed it. So I know that's a long-winded question, a lot to throw at you, but something tells me you'll be able to run with it. Your upbringing into the military and how that laid the foundation into what you used as tools to build the man you became.
Yeah, so not well. I did not have a great background, and that's, like the mistakes I said at the beginning that I've made, so many of them. I was a victim, right? And I think, sure, we can say 25 is like when you can't really make excuses anymore, but that habit of me making excuses, oh, it's something else's fault or it's this or that, it started in my upbringing. It came down to, my parents divorced and this and that, right? And now I have a reason to be a victim and all that kind of stuff. And even more so today, I mean, we live in the victim society. Like, there's a label for everything. It's your skin color, it's your religion, it's your, is it rainbow flag or not? I mean, there's an excuse for everything today to be mediocre. And we almost celebrate, being a victim today, and it's insane. So, quite frankly, if I would have been held a little bit more to account in my teenage years, that like, hey, that mentality is victimhood. Stop it. Your parents divorced. Big whoop, right? I hear you. I know it sucks. Let's drive forward, right? In productive ways. So I don't mean to sound harsh or cold, but men are different than women. We need a firmer touch. We need that strong guidance. And I was essentially kind of given the opposite. I was given, this kind of environment where I was almost rewarded for my victimhood in a way. And so I think that set me up for a very, I needed success, not in the sense of I wanted to apply myself and produce good results with my energy, which I think is that's a good use of it. Instead, it was like I had this hole I was trying to fill with achievement, with outward achievement. And if I could only just achieve enough, then, right, then they'd trust me, then they'd love me, then they'd accept me, then I'd be worth something. And that mentality is where the problems start. And especially as a young man, if that's the only thing driving you, it may work for a while. It certainly did for me, right? It looked on the outside like I had everything together. I was crushing it in the Army, did really well at what I did. I was, top of my peer group and everything, and kind of felt like I had my whole life ahead of me, and, there's nothing that can stop me. But internally, I was asking myself, this narrative is playing of, if they only knew the real me, if they found out, it all come crashing down. That's a very empty place to be living, right? I was essentially living a double life everywhere I went, right? I was trying to fool everyone, and that really stemmed from that lack of kind of firm guidance earlier on when I was a teenager. And just very long story short, my parents split up. I ended up staying with my mom. It was super manipulative, lots of lies and things like that going on. And so my relationship with my dad became extremely distanced. And so basically from 16 to 27, I basically had almost no relationship with my dad. And as I replay my life and think about, despite his flaws or faults, if I would have had a more open mind and maintained a stronger relationship with him, I sincerely doubt I would have made some of the mistakes I've made over the course of my early adult life. And that's a void that, maybe you're listening to this and your dad isn't a great guy, or maybe he's not even here and you can't kind of go repair those bridges. I hear you. I feel you. I know that is terrible, and it's not a great place to be. But I want to reframe this for you, for those listening. You get to be the one to change the story moving forward. You alone have the power to rewrite the entire story of your family name. That it's a burden, but it's also an incredible opportunity we get as men. And so in my own walk, it wasn't until that point where I finally accepted, you know what? It doesn't matter what's happened to me or didn't happen to me. For one, there's millions of people who have it far worse than I've ever had it. So that perspective is healthy. But two, regardless of any of that, I alone am responsible for picking up the pieces and moving forward and doing the best I can do today and tomorrow and the next day. And the past needs to stay in the past. And that happened for me. That mental shift started in about 2018 after being off active duty for a couple of years and pretty much almost blowing up my entire life, marriage and everything. And everyone I've talked to, all the men I look up to, or really powerful people that I, kind of have had the pleasure of meeting, they all agree with me on this topic, that every man, regardless of your circumstance, has to make the decision that it's on me. I get to be the one to change it. And it may be super hard. You may have the deck stacked against you, but your efforts will certainly not be in vain if you do it for the right reasons.
I'm going to say this 3 times and wait louder as I say it. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. And you guys can say it one more time as loud as you can listening. George, that right there, I mean, that's the realization where most boys turn into men. And it becomes it is on me. And I say it over and over again, there's a difference between responsibility and fault, because and this is me talking to my past self. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I get it. It's still your responsibility.
Correct.
And that means what happens next. I feel like I said something that hit a nerve. I'm going to stop talking so you could wrap on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's leadership, right? And this is another kind of lie of the modern age, that someone has to be to blame, right? Someone is at fault, and you see it a lot in marriage, right? Oh, she this, he that, and we're always trying to like blame each other. Well, that's a race to the bottom, and it's actually the abdication of any responsibility, like you said. And so, let's use the context of the military, something I know near and dear here, where as a commander, your duty description in the manual that like describes your job says, as commander of this company, you are responsible for everything your company does or fails to do, period. Now, there's 130 soldiers in the company. There's a lot of extra rifles and actions that happen that you aren't certainly doing. In fact, in a firefight, you're the one on the radio, most likely. You're not even shooting. You're responsible for all of it. So if someone else screws it up, they're certainly at fault for doing the wrong thing, but you alone are responsible for the outcomes. And this is something that modern men need to understand. And we're really good about doing this at work, and then we apply absolutely none of it at home. I'm prospect number 1, patient 0 right there. That was me, man. Crushing in the military, an accomplished military commander, all the accolades, all the things. And I came home and absolutely used none of it in my marriage. And my wife this, she won't that. It's her fault. Boom, 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 blame, blame, blame. And everything just got worse. When I started accepting ownership of the outcomes, taking responsibility that, hey, I married this woman. I am responsible for my family, even if it's not fair, even if my wife is wrong. I'm still responsible for moving forward and figuring out what I can do and seeking counsel from wise men to redirect me. We all have to make that choice. So that idea of responsibility is paramount to all leadership. And if you don't understand that, especially in the context of marriage, there's no way you're going to be successful. Now, it's not everything, but it's certainly a massive piece of the equation.
Yeah, no, amen to that. Quick side note question. How did the mental conditioning merge with the training and the mental conditioning of the military? You mentioned growing up, adolescent, having that victim mindset. I imagine in the military, there was some added conditioning that came about through there as well.
So, yeah, the military kind of just amplified my natural tendencies. And it allowed me to kind of mask my own problems, because a lot of those coping mechanisms and that drive and that, discipline and kind of firmness to outcomes and everything, that's highly beneficial as a military leader, right? It's a results-oriented organization. There's lives on the line. Being short and direct and aggressive, those things are pretty valuable in a combat scenario. Those are terrible basically in every other aspect of life. But I essentially started treating I was a hammer looking for a nail. Essentially, I was a one-trick pony instead of being a multi-tool. And a real good man is more like that multi-tool. He's got something for every situation. And I basically just kind of treated everything as the same. And so I caused a lot of damage, especially in my marriage, simply because I was treating everything the same and not having any nuance to the way that I presented myself as a husband versus as, a military leader. So my conditioning, it became essentially a new level of coping mechanism to have my identity wrapped up in George, the military leader, versus, hey, this is a profession I do. It's not everything about me. I'm certainly proud of it and I love it very much, but I'm still me, and like these are my values and these are the way I carry myself, and understanding that I can adapt and kind of amplify different strengths of mine in each different situation. And certainly my wife needed a much different version of me than she got. And so every guy listening to this, That's something that we train in our program about, kind of being the right thing at the right time in the right place. And you can even develop like alter egos depending on your scenarios. So the conditioning, it's hard to undo that, obviously, right? You're building a habit. But really, once I kind of made the mental shift, it was a lot easier for me to start unpacking that, hey, I don't have to keep doing this. I can actually change it. And that may sound to some listening like, oh man, that sounds like work. It's actually the opposite. It's liberating, because for the first time in years, you actually have a new option. And so although it was hard to redirect my life and to start training myself new habits, it felt very liberating, especially when you finally start succeeding at the newer, more healthy habits. So I just want you guys to like think about that for a minute. If you're reflecting on your own life right now and thinking like, that some of that sounds like me, take a minute and breathe and realize that this is an opportunity to not be a slave to that conditioning any longer. You actually get to start changing it for yourself, and no one's coming to save you. But once you start the shift, people will actually come out of the woodwork and support you. And that's been true to me too. Is like, George isn't that special. I'm not some great guy who just willpowered myself through all this. Man, there's loads of people. I can't even list them all. I mean, it's hundreds of people that have played critical roles, at least at some piece of my life along that way, that helped shape the man you're hearing on this podcast right now. And I'm a product of their aid. And so that's the final point I'll make here is you have to choose it for yourself. You have to make the initial shift. But then once you do, people will recognize it and they will be willing to aid you along the way because they see the drive and the desire to have that newer, better life. And once they see that, they know that their investment in you, whether it's time or advice or wisdom, is not going to be wasted, and that it will be received and actually put into practice. And that's exciting for someone who wants to help someone who's hurting. When they see that desire to actually learn from them, they will pour themselves out for you because they're getting that kind of fulfillment of helping you along the way.
Yeah, that reminds me, I forgot who said it. It was a story or a research study done. A man's car breaks down. He's on the side of the road. Cars keep passing him. Cars keep passing him. No one's coming to save you, right, bro? Guy gets out of the car, starts pushing. Suddenly, car stops. Someone else comes to push. Another car stops. Somebody else comes to push. People are more likely to help someone who's helping themselves. There's nothing that changed with that car being on the side of the road. Right. And you mentioned before, so many reasons for us to be a victim. Dude could be sitting in the car. It's because of his orientation, his skin color, this, the other thing. This is why no one's helping me. But when he gets out of the car, none of that matters because he starts helping himself and other people come to that aid. Life is the same way. For anyone who's listening and what George just said, if it sounds like work, you might not be going through enough pain in your life yet, which is where, quote unquote, the wisdom piece comes in. And look at the trajectory of your life and decide a different destination. Now, for someone else who hears what George is saying and that sounds like relief, it's because where you are right now, you're dealing with so much chaos or so much frustration with your current situation that even having the option, regardless of it looking like work, is the saving grace that you needed. And you alluded to this before, being the man that your wife needed, right? We don't need George coming home asking for an AAR on the day, the after action report on how things went. No military jargon when coming into the house, right? It's hey babe, how was your day? And I'd love for this for any of the men listening who crush it at work. A lot of our guys are high performers. They crush it in their roles, in their business, much like you say, I'm doing great and crushing it in the military. And then I come home, completely different story. How can we have that nuanced approach that you mentioned? Almost being a chameleon. I don't like changing colors, but I like blending into the environment, right? I could be different for my wife than I am for my buddies, and I'm different at work than I am for my parents, right? But the foundation is still Ted. Talk about becoming that man.
So being a chameleon kind of sounds like maybe pretending to be something you're not. That's not what we're speaking about, just to be super clear here. It's more of the principle of drawing on your natural strengths and attributes for the right situation, right? In combat, I need to be a certain way. I need to be short, direct, violent. There's lives at stake. It's got to be a certain way. I don't need to be that way with my 9-year-old daughter, right? Is anyone actually dying right now? Nope. She spilled some water or whatever. Okay. I can chill. It's just a learning moment. We're good. Like, so I need to pull on very different aspects of me. I'm not changing who I am. I'm just recognizing that time and place matters. And a big piece of this first, I think one of the first critical steps is understanding that your identity is not what you do. So as a man, if you believe that your only value comes from what you do with work, or that's the only thing going well for you, so that makes you something, brother, I'm telling you, you are in for a massive disappointment at some point. It may be 20 years down the road, but oof, I don't want to be in your shoes at that point. That was me. The Army, it allowed me to have all the things I always wanted, right? Power, respect, authority, all these things, right? It kind of scratched this itch for me in a lot of ways, but it was an unhealthy coping mechanism, really. And this isn't the Army's fault. I did this. George did this to himself. Like, I could have done all the things I did and not had this be the outcome. But my mindset was so like addicted in a way of like, oh, if I do all these things, then, right, then I'll be a man, then I'll be respected, then I'll be valued, and all that kind of thing. And it just stemmed from that lack of identity for me. I had to distance myself from the things I've done or am going to do or whatever through what am I actually and why, and what do I actually want to be. And so that's the first step for everyone. Once that's identified, right, I would argue that you need to have like the vision of the future, your legacy in mind, and kind of backwards plan off of that, because that becomes kind of like your destination. If you don't have that destination defined, how are you going to get there, right? You're just a ship on the ocean being blown around by the waters and the wind. You're not actually sailing anywhere. So you have to have that endpoint in mind. Once that's identified, then we can start to recognize who we are. So leadership isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, right? Ted, you and I are probably drastically different on many different skill sets. Some people listening may be more introverted. I'm very extroverted. My energy will fill a space. So you got to understand who you are and what you're working with, and then bring to bear the things that make you uniquely different and are your strengths, right? If you're an introvert, don't try and be like George. It's never going to work. You're just going to be a watered down version of an extrovert. Instead, lean into, you probably are very emotionally perceptive. You're probably very wise on kind of like some of these things that for George took a lot of like practice to understand. So whatever your differences may be, okay, great. It's not a weakness or a limitation or any of that kind of thing. It's just you have to play the game a little different. And understanding that about yourself, then you can build alter egos. So there's a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. Highly recommend that to every man listening to this. And again, the idea isn't to pretend to be something you're not. It's drawing upon the things that you naturally have as strengths to play in your best interest, depending on the situation you find yourself. So military example or work example, most guys struggle with this, right? Work is happening, it's stressful, or you really love it and it's all consuming, like the military, it's something you're really like passionate about. Well, you got to leave work at work when you come home. And so an easy way to do this is you just create your alter egos of, right, this is Soldier George and this is Family Man George. And when I walk in through the door and I take the uniform off, I'm going to put on the same, t-shirt every time, or the same pair of shoes or something. And I'm signifying to myself that like, all right, Army George is gone. I'm not special anymore, right? I'm not my rank anymore. I'm dad or husband. And it's a way to snap your mental state into like, okay, I don't need the aggression here. I don't need the discipline and the drill sergeant type of, military command presence. It can be more, hey, honey, tell me more about that. Help me understand, right? It can be a lot more tender and kind of stoic. And those differences is how men can really start to thrive in these different scenarios of life. And what you'll find is you'll actually start to love yourself a lot more, because it's kind of like this positive feedback of your style and your natural traits aren't actually bad or weak or any of that kind of stuff, depending on who you are. They're great in the right scenarios, and you're just learning to leverage them. So I say this all the time, to like my clients coming through the program and everything. One of me is enough for the world, right? If there was more than one George, if there was 10 Georges in a room, it would be absolutely unbearable. So I understand that about myself, right? I surround myself with people that balance me out, who are like, hey, brother, whoop, time out. Let's slow down here. A little too intense. If I surrounded myself with a bunch of dudes just like me, I would be, you would not want to be hanging out with me. So there's another principle there of accepting who you really are. Defining that identity gives you permission to not be perfect anymore, and not wallow in self-pity, but to just understand, hey, that's a limitation for me. Like, Ted, I know you're really good at time and management and planning and things like that. So if I have any questions about that, I'm not going to get arrogant about it and instead go, hey, Ted, I know you're really good at this. Can you show me how you do it? And my life's going to be a lot simpler, you know? So anyway, I don't want to ramble too much, but I would argue you have to distance yourself from work. You have to define your own identity, define that end goal, that legacy, that vision for the future, and then start building alter egos or some kind of form of amplifying the right version of yourself in the different settings you find yourself.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's understanding how you are in those different arenas where I call it, I got to get Teddy ready, right? I got to get Teddy ready to become who I want. But nobody wants a piece of Petty Teddy, because Petty Teddy, I try and kill Petty Teddy. That's just not the nice body.
I love that. That's good, man. Hey, that's good.
But to your point with the identity aspect and being a podcast host and watching a lot of podcasts, some of the top podcasts in the world, they all have this very stoic and serious approach to it. And even I know you've been on some of the Zuby podcasts. I watched that you were on. I'm not like that. I'm going to crack jokes. I'm going to crack Petty Teddy. Yeah. I'm going to talk about George asking his wife for an AAR. That's just who I am. But that also is what makes my podcast different than anyone listening to this interview. Someone could have watched your interview somewhere else. They're not going to get the same impacts. And that's why our uniqueness is helpful. Playing still onto the motion of being this guy for our families or surroundings and finding our identity. What does it mean to be the man your wife wants to have sex with?
Good question. Yeah. So this gets into the realm of like happy wife, happy life and all those kinds of misconceptions about modern marriage. So at a high level, right? A lot of married men think that their wife owes them sex and, well, it's her duty and all that kind of stuff. Okay, well, technically, yes, sure, bro. But is that really the type of sex you want to be having with your wife? And so if your default is, well, I'm the man she has to have sex with, what that's inherently saying is that she's not really attracted to you for a variety of reasons. And it's probably a lot to do with your behavior or lack of behaviors. Has nothing to do with how physically attractive you are. So at a high level, when I say become the man your wife wants to have sex with, which you should all strive for, that means that you're kind of building yourself up as a masculine leader, regardless of her, right? This is the ownership piece again. You're going to do those things, not because you're trying to have her recognize you and, oh, if you're a good little boy, then you can have sex, right? That dynamic is essentially you're a scared little boy looking for mommy's approval. Ugh, that sounds gross. Now think about it from her perspective. Would you want to have sex with like the little boy version of you? Yeah, that sounds pretty nasty, huh? A lot of us are doing this, and I was the same way. Okay, I believed all the modern conditioning, and well, I can't make her upset, and all this kind of stuff. And basically, what happens then is you're abdicating actual leadership to her emotional state or how she's feeling about something or what she wants to do. And I'm not saying we're going to like control our wives, but if I'm supposed to be this man on a mission, building my vision and setting my heading, and then she gets upset and I go, oh, okay, never mind that. What was it, honey? Let me just yield to whatever you said. She senses that. She's not an idiot. In fact, she's way smarter than you when it comes to emotions and kind of these intangible things like that. She's immediately seeing in her subconscious mind, he's so weak that if I get upset, he will abandon his mission. That's the message that's communicated. And that tanks her sex drive really fast because it makes her scared. It makes her fearful. It makes her realize that actually she's in charge, and that terrifies her because she doesn't want that. She married you, the man, to be the man and protect her from the problems and to derive the mission forward so that she can just go along with you on the adventure. So it's that kind of concept. And so let's get very practical here. There's a quick little test you can do right now. Like, are there any light bulbs out in your house? If so, why? Why are you waiting for her to nag you to change the light bulb? Is the trash full? Does it need to be taken out? Are there just little things that if your wife wasn't in the picture, are you just going to let those things sit and rot or whatever? No, like a man just takes care of business regardless of what's going on. So if you're in this situation where she's like nagging you about all the things, that's a massive blinking indicator light, like check engine light that, hey, brother, like she respects you so little that she feels like you're another child she has to manage around the house instead of her husband. Okay. And so another thing that I did, I call it like the shopping cart test, because that was my personal epiphany, was we were going to the grocery store. Here I am, military commander, combat veteran, I'm this tough guy. And we're walking in the grocery store And I turn to my tiny little wife and I go, do we need a cart, honey? No, duh, George. You're there to get like 2 weeks worth of groceries. Why are you asking your wife for permission to grab the shopping cart, bro? Just do it, Like,
Yeah.
So I had this epiphany of like, oh my gosh, I've done all these things. I take charge when in charge, like all that kind of stuff everywhere except in my marriage. And that was kind of the shifting point for me of realizing that, okay, leading your wife doesn't mean you're like barking orders at her. A lot of it is you're almost just ignoring her and kind of just taking action as a man. And naturally she's like, wow, that feels a lot better. I'm going to follow that guy. There's that guy I fell in love with. So at a high level, that's what it is. I'm sure you've got some follow-up questions and we can get a little bit more tactical here on some of the things that men need to do. But I wanted to like paint that big picture because maybe you're like me where you feel like, man, I'm trying all the things and nothing's getting better. And our sex life is cold and I just can't seem to like, get my way around the house or whatever. This is why. It's because you've basically been unintentionally putting her in charge. She hates it. You hate it. You're both frustrated. And we can solve that pretty quickly, but the responsibility is on you.
Yeah. I had a guest on a long time ago, Allison A. Armstrong. She's an author and a researcher on men and women studies. And the way she depicted this was perfect. And it's literally what you're saying. She said, what you need to understand about the woman's brain is when she comes home, those dishes in the sink are talking to her. That light bulb that is out is talking to her. All these things around the house, these little nuanced stuff, they're chirping at her and she's aware of them. Mm-hmm. She might not have the ability to grab the ladder, get on the top level and take the light bulb out. She might be waiting for you to do it, but those are the things that pile up. So when you come home talking about your needs, in air quotes for anybody that's listening, not watching, she don't give a damn about that. Because she's like, you come home, you're talking about your needs, but what about this? And to your point, she doesn't want to have to tell you. She doesn't want to have to explain it or ask you. She just wants you to do it and take responsibility just responsibility for my environment. If I'm home and visually, you mentioned taking charge when it needs to be taken charge. Fellas, and even the 14 to 17% of women who watch, who might get triggered by thinking, okay, you just take lead. For a lot of people,
I'll cut you off right there. Women almost always agree with me. They're like, yes, why do men do that? Guys, they're desperate for you to step up. They've been waiting for it for a long time. She's probably not going to have any complaints about you just taking some decisions off her plate. Because that's really what it is here, is you are deferring hundreds of times a week. This is, for me, was the shopping cart like example. How many little things are you doing where you're essentially asking for her input or permission? And it's like the most trivial thing in the world. I'm not talking about like massive financial decisions that you absolutely should consult with her on or something. This is like, take the trash out, pack the lunch, like little meaningless things. And you go, honey, do you want me to do this? Or where's the thing? Or what's the thing? You're just giving her more decisions that she has to make. And she's just like tapped out, man. I forget the number, but I saw that it's astronomically high. Like the average housewife, I think, has to make thousands of decisions a day just for their child. So don't add more onto it, bro. She's tired. So you can step up and just be like, honey, we're going to do this. Let's go there. Let's do this. Or just take action. And it's like, oh, you're lowering the intensity she's feeling. You're turning down the volume of all these questions and mommy. And so at a high level, right, she needs you to be the man, not the boy asking mommy for permission or mommy for approval. It's more of like, you're just going to do these things because it's the right thing. And so that's like table stakes. That earns you the right over time too, to be like, hey, honey, that's really disappointing. Don't do that anymore. And guys are like, oh, you can say that to your wife? And like, yeah, you can actually say that about sex too. Like, hey, honey, I'd really like to have some time tonight. And this is like, you have to earn this, right? This isn't just overnight. You get to do this. But eventually, she'll be like, I just really don't want to. Like, well, that's a little disappointing. And without being like passive aggressive, you're like, that's disappointing. Like she can feel your disappointment as a husband. Most guys are too afraid to actually say that. And she knows it. So she's losing respect. She'll respect you more by actually voicing your disappointment, even if it doesn't change the situation. So where I'm going with all this is she needs to know that you're strong enough to handle her when she's emotionally dysregulated or fearful or any of the things that she's feeling or experiencing. She needs to know that you can stand firm like the pillar and that she can rely on your strength regardless of that. Every time you crumble, you're confirming to her subconscious mind that you're not safe with this man. This man will not actually protect you. This is the story that starts playing in her mind. And it's not, I want to make this clear too. It's not a manipulative thing she's doing to you. This is how her brain is programmed to protect her from the world. So when we understand it, like you said, like this author was writing, we need to understand that her number one need is most likely safety, physical, emotional, financial, all of these forms of safety. And so we can ask questions. Hey, honey, are you feeling stressed and anxious right now? Like she snaps at you or something. Hey, honey, I'm your husband. Could you just speak calmly? Oh, yeah, okay. I can tell you're upset right now. What's going on, honey? Right? Instead of being like, don't you dare talk to me like that. See the difference? So if us as a man, we can kind of bring that calm to the storm, we can absorb the blows and kind of lead through it, her respect for you will raise significantly really fast. And in tandem, her desire for sex with you also matches. So again, this is like weeks worth of content we're cramming into this little section here, but I'm hoping to plant some seeds here because guys, you don't have to stay a victim to your circumstance. You can absolutely change this through direct action. And yeah, she's probably wanting you to do this. Actually, she just doesn't want to have to teach you how to be a man.
Yeah, I hate I waited so long to ask the question, but because we're coming up on the end, and this is true, and that's exactly the point I was going to make. I'm glad I just let you riff on that because you are taking things off her plate. That's exactly where I was going with it. You're not going to see resistance to your leadership or your controlling. What you're going to see is shoulders dropping in relief to the weight coming off, and it's so important that you do that. And the example that you just made literally happened before this podcast, George. Before we jumped on, I just finished a killer workout. I said it was going to be light. I'm dripping sweat. I come back. Our dog's barking, about to wake up our daughter. My wife is a little short, a little frustrated, a little annoyed. And I said, "Hey, are you annoyed?" I said, "Hey, are you okay? You seem annoyed." And she's like, "Oh, I'm just really tired. And the dog pissed me off. It was nothing you did." And this is why I tell guys, don't take it personally. And this is something I've worked on a lot because I used to take things personally.
Same.
I don't anymore.
Same.
So she's like, "It's nothing you did." And I laughed. I was like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. I didn't do nothing. I'm just checking on you." And the fact that I'm able to say it in such a happy, joyful way.
Joyful swagger.
Yeah. It's like, "Hey, babe, I just noticed you're a little annoyed. Are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm good. We're fine." But that's a mental check-in. Like you mentioned, that's a hey, I'm checking on your emotions. You're safe with me. I don't know why you're upset. I'm not offended. Even if you are frustrated, even if I did something, I need to take ownership for it. Is there something I need to take ownership for? And then we can correct it. But to your point of just having that space to sit in that chaos, in that emotion, confidently, comfortably, and address the reality and say, "Okay, well, hope you feel better. Well, why don't after this, you sit down on the couch, get some rest while the baby's sleeping, get relax. And when I'm done with this podcast, I'll crush these dishes. Don't even worry about that. I got this." Taking that step. Man, I wish we didn't have just 3 more minutes left in the podcast. I have a couple quick questions I need to ask. We might have to do a part 2 at some point, George.
For sure.
Because I didn't even get to pull in, and I'm going to pull in some research for the audience because I think this talks on. I'm going to try and squeeze it in. We got 3 minutes, George. Harvard study of adult development found that men who cultivate purpose, connection, and long-term legacy are healthier and happier in later life. Talk about your 3 legs of leadership really quick.
Yeah, so the 3 legs of leadership, I actually learned this from a friend, John Michael Clark, but it's authority, responsibility, and compassion. And I believe this is universal. So like even in the military, I think this has a place. And just to quickly define it. So authority is the power to actually change a situation, to change the outcomes. Okay. Obviously in the military, you have a rank, you have legal authority that comes with that. As a husband, you're the head of your wife. You have the authority to actually change the direction of your marriage, right? Responsibility is the next leg. That means ownership of the outcomes. Again, it's not the blame game. It's recognizing, okay, I have the authority and I have the responsibility to actually do something about it, which we're going to take action on. And then the final and most important leg to balance this all out is compassion. And that's you love your people a lot and they know it, right? You demonstrate it frequently. And so when you combine all 3 of those things, you are now doing the act of leadership. You are bearing the responsibility for others so that they don't have to, with compassion of their situation and how they feel, and still using your authority to make the hard but necessary decisions on behalf of everyone for better outcomes for everyone, not selfish gain. So guys typically find themselves on one extreme or the other, where they're all authority and all responsibility and zero compassion. Hi, my name is George Hayworth. That was my flaw. And then the other one is they're all compassion and all responsibility, and they have no authority whatsoever, right? They're the family butler, not the family captain. And that's the name of the program where I learned that, is the family captain. So, but I believe outside of marriage, that still works in business, that works in the military, that works in any kind of form of leadership you're going to set yourself up in. Compassion can still be very firm, but it's just that check on yourself to make sure that your selfish natural desires as a human being aren't superseding the mission, right? At some point, my selfish desires still have to die on behalf of the good of the team, whatever that team is, family or business or military. And when leaders do this well, they are truly leading. They're really making an impact, and they're creating that culture where people are like, I'd walk through fire for that guy. That's how that's earned, is when you balance those three legs. So men have to understand that, because everywhere you go in your life, somewhere you're doing some form of leadership, you need to understand that balance, especially with your marriage and especially with your children.
Nice. George, how can people find you, connect with you, follow you, get more of your work and some of your coaching, brother?
Yeah, brother. It's theelitesentinel.com. We got all the info there. If you want to engage with me on socials, I'm most active on X at Elite Sentinel X. And then I'm on all the other socials too. So I'm sure you'll throw the links in the description here. But man, it's been a real privilege to be here. And yeah, I'd love to do a part 2, because I could tell we have a whole lot we'd want to dive into together. But at the end of the day, man. Yeah.
Question 2.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just men, just remember, leaders aren't born, they're forged. And so you can actually take ownership today. You can take action today, whether you work with me or Ted or someone like us, to start helping you to do that more rapidly. And that's all you can do. You can identify where you're at, where you want to get to, and start taking serious effort to make that a reality. It's the guys who just throw their hands up like, well, life dealt me a bad hand. That's weak. We can do better. So yeah, I want to partner with you on that journey, and listening to this podcast is a great start too.
Absolutely, man. And let's kind of do this quick elevator pitch. I hate to give us a short time for this last question. It's what's happened to you, or something that you've seen. It could be something we covered already, but something that stuck with you, that shapes the way you view the world as a man.
It's a big question. I think for me, it was some very key figures that I look up to, who have been mentors, whether it's close or from afar, men that I aspire to be like. Seeing the level of emotional regulation they have in tense moments, or when someone has attacked them very personally, it's the strength to not react. And for me, that was a real wake-up call, that as a man, the number one indicator of what makes a great man isn't necessarily how strong he is, or how smart he is, or how much he's accomplished in life, or how much money he's amassed. It's his ability to just stay calm and respond in situations instead of reacting. And I recognize that for me, that was a huge weakness, even as just like a year ago. This is something I've been working very heavily on. And I think the more that I embrace that truth, the better things have gotten for me across the board. So I think for the men out there, emotional regulation is paramount. Stoicism and mastering your own emotions is one of the most masculine things you can possibly do, because you get to be that presence that creates the calm in the storm for others, not just yourself. And that's what a great man does. His presence changes those around him for the better.
Former U.S. Army captain, combat veteran, and leadership mentor, who now trains men in authentic masculinity, emotional intelligence, and family leadership, George Hayworth. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being on, and happy 4th of July, brother.
Happy 4th of July.
Yes, appreciate you. Really quick, I'm going to wrap up some of the notes for the folks taking notes or working out while listening. Pursuit at the cost of everything else. We pick the man we want to be. Unfortunately, it's not always the right target, and we hit it. Now, that's a tragedy, but it's also something to be joyful about, because that shows that you can hit a target. No one's going to save you. Nothing's going to save you. As a man, you need to take ownership of your life, where it is, the decisions that you've made, and where you've ended up, and now decide where it goes. what do I want to accomplish and why? That's one step. Identify your purpose, where you're headed. We live in a victim society. Drop that. It's not about what happened to you. It's not about fault. It's about responsibility, and that lies in your hands. You get to be the one to change the story moving forward. It ran in your family until it ran into you. Your circumstances, sure, that's true. You can have them as excuses as you want, or you could have them as the story that you get. Blame is the abdication of responsibility. Come on now. I should have just put that quote online. Choose it for yourself. Whoever you choose to become, men, if you're listening, identify who you want to be internally and then bring that into the world. Be yourself, grow that self-love. And of course, the alter ego effect, the book that George recommended in order of helping you find your identity and being more of the asset in the room that you're in. Pulling out the attributes that the moment or the room needs, not changing yourself, but being a toolbox. Maybe you need the hammer today. You could leave the screwdriver in the box. Tomorrow you need the screwdriver, and then maybe you're going to need the wrench. But implementing all of that and then respond. Don't react. Guys, thank you so much for rocking with us. George, we appreciate you as well. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get a new episode each and every week. Share this so you can echo the value. And of course, leave us a rating to let us know how we're doing. It's the best compliment that you can give us here on the podcast so we can keep this value coming to you. And as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain, but you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.